Welcome to the Mixing It Up podcast with myself, Sam Showering from EzTenda, and our guest, Rhys Oldfield, founder of Be At One and now recently Saviour Bars, which is new. I'm sure we're going to hear about from Rhys, and Rich Larkin, industry legend actually, now commercial director at Mirabeau Rosé. And we're just going to be talking about all things industry, brand activations and bars and general industry stuff.
How you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks, Rhys. And do you want to introduce yourself, Rich? I'd probably butchered that slightly.
You definitely butchered it with industry legend, but nice to be here. And do you want me to introduce myself?
Yes, please.
Okay, perfect. So, hi everyone, Richard Larkin. As Sam said, I'm now working at a wonderful Provence rosé brand called Maison Mirabeau, and been there just over, I think, 14 months, something like that. And then background of brands and Diageo for about 18 years before that.
Wowzers. And like, what's been the main difference between, because I know you've headed up the field sales team at Diageo for I don't know how many years.
I did a little bit of that, back in the day, and then lots of on-trade roles, ran the big managed sector for Diageo for about 5 years, and then the reserve brands unit across the UK, and then into Europe as well. And then an incubation division that we started, which was when Diageo bought a majority stake in brands and sat on the balance sheet, and then we integrated them in. So brands like Seedlip, Casamigos, to name a couple, but about eight more of those, which we can talk about.
Yeah, and you got very stuck into Casamigos.
Yeah, Casamigos. I ended up working then directly for the Casamigos Tequila Company, which was good fun. So working for, if you like, the founders and the business on the earn-out, and that was interesting to do it Diageo side and then brand side, and just to kind of, lots of stories to talk about founders and rollouts and earn-outs and integration and all those good things.
Yeah, interesting to get that perspective from going from Diageo and then into that world, of earn-outs and all the sort of M&A stuff as well.
Yeah, and now at a family-led independent kind of business with a husband and wife founder.
Cool.
So good
cool.
fun.
And what's probably the main difference between some of the brand activations you do for Casamigos versus rosé? Because I figure with Mirabeau Rosé, and I'd love to try some, by the way, if it's going.
On cue, here we go.
If it's going.
Absolutely.
The main difference between activating Casamigos, I guess there's 3-4 core serves you can get out. You can pay to be on a menu and do great brand activations that way. Whereas I'm guessing with a rosé brand, you've kind of got branded glassware, which not always everyone wants, and then you've got some menu listings. But what kind of makes a great brand activation for Mirabeau?
Not to be a POS and glassware supplier, I think is the main thing. You can spend a lot of money on stuff, and I'm proud to say actually Mirabeau, we just got last week ordered our B Corp status, so nice. That's been great. So we're also conscious around how much stuff we are actually creating and how much we're using, and then if ideally how much we can the life cycle of that. So we're conscious of that as well. But I think what makes a great brand activation, I think we definitely need to talk to this man as well about that, because I used to sell to this man for a long time, and I think why don't you start almost kind of bar side, and then we'll go back to the brand side.
Yeah, so a Be At One, it's obviously the place to be for brands. They do a great tendering process. They've got all the cocktails that you submit. You get to sort of weigh in on what you think the brand, how it should be presented and what cocktail it should be served. It's a really, from what I remember, a big process to get in there. What made a good brand activation for Be At One?
It was the bar company. Yes, obviously the brands are important, the drinks are important, the menu's important, but really it's all about the people. And when I talk about Be At One, it's people first. And really what any brand needs to do is engage with the staff. When it comes to a place like Be At One, everyone's full-time. There were no part-time staff. Everyone was full-time. Everybody was interested in the industry, interested in what we did and how we did it. And so they were interested in, something like Mirabeau, or, we did some deals with Diageo, but also we did a lot of stuff with Pernod Ricard, and it was about educating the staff and helping the staff and getting them involved, what the vodka is, what the gin is, what the rum is, where it's from, do some tastings and actually get the staff excited about it.
Yeah, amen to that.
You did some great stuff with, because it was always, I was Diageo side and we were trying to win Beat One all for a long, long time. They were the industry leading, cheers. And it was the one that we really wanted to get, but the three, Rhys and his two kind of partners, they had a great relationship with Pernod, which actually I completely respected, and the guys at Pernod are fantastic. And you did a lot with Absolute, and they did some really good limited edition bottles, and you even did a Beat One bottle, I remember.
Well, from my understanding, it was actually corresponding with actually when we left the business, but we were the only bar company that Absolute made a bottle for globally.
That's cool.
It was kind of a lot of to and fro in, but that's it. I mean, I think, I don't want to apologise to Richard too much.
You don't need to. You don't need to.
But they also had a portfolio that really worked for us with Absolute, Beefeater, and Havana Club. It was a bit of a sweet spot for our clientele, mid-market, went in the rail, and we sold it, by the pallet. And that was good for them, and it was good for us, and enabled us to get a good price, etc. And but really, the answer to your question really is to, get the staff engaged, get the people engaged, and talk about Absolute. I mean, some people you go on trips, but really talk about Absolute, talk about Havana. Where's it come from? Why is it this? Why is it that? And the kids, the staff love that sort of stuff.
And let's dig into that a second, because I think staff incentives. I mean, I agree. It's such a great way to get the brand talking to the venue with everyone involved. What does staff really care about from staff? What are the things that get staff really G'd up to sell a product? Because we see all the time, a bottle of free stock for a staff member or whatever. That's not sort of massively exciting, in my opinion. Probably not massively exciting. You're surrounded by booze all day and you walk out with a free bottle. Great, but what's the kind? Is it just cash, vouchers, trips?
Well, the trips are very strong, but really it's about having somebody come in, or a brand owner, or somebody come in and actually be passionate about it and talk about it. Why this rosé is better than next rosé? Why this just talk about it and help the staff understand what it is you're trying to achieve. And it comes from the venue as well that someone like Beat One, like I say, all full time, they are keen to be there. They're keen to learn, and that's I think that's what makes it very attractive for the brands to come to Beat One. But that's the difference, getting the staff involved. Now the trips, to somewhere like Sweden or Cuba or somewhere like that. Obviously, that's a real interesting motivator for staff, and having a competition and trying to upsell and incentivize them to get a trip is a big winner, because they're interested in going to these places
to learn, right?
To learn, and obviously there's a lot of youngsters in the business who go into go in any of these places. Mirabeau, that's a motivational, interesting trip, but they get them excited about it. Come and see it. What about this? What about that? Show them, and that's what gets the staff. And they're thinking about the product when the customer comes to the bar, and that's and that's what it's about. Obviously, it needs to be a great product, otherwise you wouldn't have it in the first place. But it's getting the staff excited about what you're doing.
Yeah, I suppose one more question on this particular topic. So you got, I mean, how many lines did you carry at Beat One? 100-ish?
Possibly.
Yeah. So say 100 lines, and then you've got 100 brands looking to incentivize staff to go get their brand talked about over the next one. And I get the, how do you get, say, a Beat One now? It's got to be circa 50 bars, say 10 bartenders a venue. So you've got 500 people with, say, 100 brands trying to incentivize them to go get to, whether it's a trip to Provence to go around the Mirabeau sites, or how do you stand out as a brand? I mean, for the brand owners that are listening to this, what's the advice to go, what's your unique point of difference to another distillery tour or another trip to Provence? And I think I think that's kind of the $1 million question for drinks brands.
Well, I think, as Richard alluded to, or as you mentioned, a free bottle or glassware is not enough. It's rolling your sleeves up and coming down and meeting the team and engaging directly with the guys behind the bar. I think, it's not a simple answer to that because, if it was as simple as glassware, etc., everybody would be doing it right. So the difference is the effort to come down and talk to staff and engage with the staff, on site, and that is difficult. But that is the difference. That is the difference. I think the staff, they're your salespeople, right? You need to make them your salespeople. The guys behind the bar, they're not order takers, or they shouldn't be order takers. They are your salespeople. And when people want to have a gin and tonic, or they want to have a whatever they want, the staff need to be educated and motivated. Don't have one of those. Try one of these. What about this? And if you that's that. I mean, that is, don't get me wrong, that is difficult, right? And it's time consuming. But that is the difference.
Yeah, and hats off to the Be At One. They've got I've seen it before, an entire cocktail training program.
Yeah.
That they level up every few weeks for learning new cocktails, learning new.
Well, it took us at least 9 weeks to train a bartender.
Wow.
And so we had a whole academy. You'd have 2 weeks in site, and then 2 or 3 weeks in the classroom, and then you'd have another 4 weeks with a trainer in site again. And we spent a fortune on training staff because that's what we did. That's all we did. We didn't do anything else. Didn't pretend to be anything else. Didn't try to be. We were a cocktail bar for the masses.
Cool.
And that's what we did, and that's how it worked.
And what? And tell us about Saviour Bars. This is a new gig.
It is a new gig. I'm quite enjoying it. It's only been 6 weeks. It'll be 5 years in July since we sold Be At One, and I needed some time off, which was fortunate. And then COVID hit, of course, and I was fortunate to watch that from the outside. But in the past, I've been having a look around, but this came across because I know the owners and they're having a change of direction, and it was in a bit of trouble, and opportunity came along, and I couldn't turn it down.
And I've got to ask, because obviously you exited Be At One, and it's a great success story for everyone listening that it can be done, and to learn about what got you into that industry and how you got your feet off the ground to start with.
Well, I met my two partners. We used to work for Tuesday Fridays back in the day, back in the early 90s. This is when it was still cool, which is a long time ago. But that was a great brand at the time and a great training. And there's quite a lot of people in the industry that came through early 90s kind of Fridays. But it came to a point where we had to have a go ourselves, or we'd always regret it. And so we scraped together some money, 60 grand we scraped together between car loans and credit cards. And I borrowed a little bit money from my brother, but we all got 9 grand car loans, and we scraped together 60 grand. And with 60 grand, we paid 30 grand for a lease of an Indian restaurant on Battersea Rise, and spent 30 grand doing it up. And that was it. That was all the money we ever put in. That's all the money we had. I mean, I think we had nothing to lose. We didn't have any family, no houses. We had nothing to lose. And and to lose 60 grand was not going to be a life-changing amount of money if we screwed it up, and there was every chance we were going to screw it up. But we worked hard and we played hard, and we painted the walls, stripped the floors, stopped the bars, screwed the pictures on the walls, cleaned the toilets, did everything. So
we're talking 60 grand car loans, which presumably you didn't buy cars, I'm assuming.
We didn't buy cars, no. I claimed to be buying a Renault Clio, I seem to have. Well, no, I had a Renault Clio, and I just pretended I was going to buy another one. Yes, but that was, So, lying to the banks is not something I'd recommend, but that is what happened, yeah.
And so you get a few different car loans from banks from 3 different guys, and you turn a business to, correct me if I'm wrong, near to a £50 million exit.
We sold it for £50 million. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it'd be 5 years ago. I think it is a good story. I think it's a unique story in as much as we literally took it from nothing all the way to the exit, and I think that that is pretty unique. We sold a third of it to private equity back in 2011 with Piper, who were very good. But I think it's we took £1,200 that first week, I remember, and then the week we sold it, we did just over £1 million.
Wow!
And but I mean, I say it was it took us 20 years. But we kept true. I think what I could talk about this all day, but what was really pleasing, I think, was that if you came to Be At One on day one, and if you came to Be At One on the day we sold it, you'd recognise it. It might look a bit different. The decor's a bit better, frankly, but fundamentally, what we were trying to do was the same. We weren't trying to reinvent the wheel. We weren't trying to be too clever. We weren't trying to be ahead of the curve. Right? Just people have good times, safe space, friendly environment, sensible price. Cocktails for the masses. As I said before, there are lots of great cocktail bars out there. And if whatever you're into, but we were just having a good time, and that's that's down to the people. That's the staff, and that's the staff is how you feel when you go to a venue is down to the staff, and you will forgive people. You go to a restaurant, you might forgive the restaurant for bad food or a bad day on the whatever, but if the service is bad, you won't go back, and that is the difference.
Yeah. And the name Be At One.
Be At One. Well,
started with BEAT.
Well, it was
ONE and ended up &1. It looked like bar.
Well, it was the .com boom at the time when we had launched, and so the ampersand, that was all over the show. But with the Be At One name, there's a few stories for that. But like I say, it was good business, and it was good the day we sold it, and I think Stonegate are very pleased with it.
And we've got obviously a minor crisis in hospitality, and I would say drinks too. I see vacancies for jobs all over the beverage and hospitality world, and you guys are two great case studies of why to get stuck into hospitality and why to give it a crunch. And if you've got any advice to any new founders, people trying to make a good go of it on the drink side or hospitality side, is there any advice you'd want to give them?
Well, I mean, when it comes to opening bars, you got to have a clear offer. I think I seem to remember the smoking ban came. That was a big issue at the time. What was that, 2006, 2008, something like that. And pubs wanted to be, because you can't smoke, right, we're going to do coffee, we're going to do daytimes, we're going to do pizza, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And actually they decided to try to be too clever. And I think, what we were trying to do, just do one thing well. Don't try and do everything. Don't try and please everybody all of the time. You just won't do it.
So it's more about focusing on your strengths rather than your weaknesses. Because everyone looks at the gaps in their offering and thinks, "I'll try and fill them," but actually, you just find what you're good at.
Find what you're good at, and if there's something you're concerned about or you're not good at, then their hiring comes up. Get somebody to come and help you, but don't. It's difficult to stay on the one path and be committed to it because there are opportunities in other places, but. In order to grow your business, you've got to be fully behind it and fully understand it, and that's where the passion comes from and the drive will come from. And if you get wayward and make the wrong decisions, and the wheels may start to come off, and that's a worry.
And Rich, how many years are you in drinks now?
20.
20.
So
you're a lifer. You're a lifer.
So far, yes, so far. But it's. I think it's the same for brands. It's story. Have you got a clear story? Have you got is your brand? We talk a lot about distinctive and memorable. And then how well do you know yourself as a brand? What are your strengths? What are your strengths really? And what makes you distinctive and memorable? And then if you can bottle that down and distill that down, excuse the pun, to 3 big things that make you stand out, and 3 big things that make you different to the competition, that you think that people and you've seen people enjoy, then you double down on it and you invest in it and you tell the story and you get bartenders or brand ambassadors or whoever is consumers excited about it, and then it's consistency and storytelling.
Consistency, that is absolutely vital. Absolutely vital.
And with launching, I mean, you've been involved in so much new product development Diageo, Casamigos, Mirabeau, and the Mirabeau gin as well. MPD, it's been flying, right? I've seen it on Waitrose shelves. I've seen it empty on Waitrose shelves. It's obviously going well, and you guys have found, I think, what a perfect partnership, by the way, Waitrose and Mirabeau gin. It's such a perfect match. And most of these smaller correct me if I think I'm wrong, but this is what I was told, launching Padrino Spritz, a brand that I launched a few years ago. We would aim for 100 Halo accounts, 100 accounts that were the perfect brand fit, and we'd chase them down with almost an endless budget to try and get in there, just to kind of be, that's where we need to be. We need to be on a terrace. We need a Spritz activation. We need, we want our perfect serves in these kind of places. Is that still the kind of rule of thumb that you kind of identify your top 100 accounts, top 1,000 accounts?
Yeah, we talk a lot, and it was a Diageo thing, but it's not owned by Diageo. It's a classic influencer strategy, and we call it the 1-9-90. I think we probably talked to you about that back in the day, Rhys. So, if I was to, and that you can segment many things from, you can do it as a consumer piece, how you activate, you can do it to the trade. But if you go to the trade, the 1% account might be the Ivy. A 9% account, a good one would be Be at One, and this idea is that you've got famous accounts, world famous accounts, globally recognised, the Ivy, right? People would be able to. There's stories written about the Ivy, probably the Ivy, around the world, and obviously they've scaled out with Ivy cafes, which have been hugely successful. And that even is an example of the 9%. They've taken something that is famous, and then the 9% are the ones that follow the trend at 9, and then the 90 is the mainstream. And I think that's understanding where your central gravity is as a brand. And I always like to say, as an on-trade venue for take our brand Mirabeau, what is the perfect account, and where does it sit in that triangle of 1-9-90? Get super clear on the central gravity. Go win it. Go and learn. Go and watch the consumers in there. But that's where your brand sings, and you need to know why. Why is it there? Why is it the right consumer? Is the audience right? Are the bartenders right? Is the messaging right? And then once you know that, double down on it, and then look to move, up and down, depending on where you are as a brand, in that kind of triangle. And then, yeah.
Interesting. And doubling down on it, I like that. It's so I guess. For the majority of brands, we're at 50% gross profit, circa around there, and you're looking at reinvesting, 20% of your gross profit into getting into these venues. How far do you go? Where does the needle need to get to for those kind of perfect places?
And the world's changed, isn't it? With there's different brands are built now, through e-commerce or D2C or through retail first. It's completely changed. The classic old world of building in the on-trade and then flip it to the off-trade. Again, some brands are doing that, and some brands still do, and it's right for some brands. But how far do you go? Again, it depends on the brand and the financing and the investment. But you don't need to go that big to fame your central gravity. You don't need to be that big, and then so. For us at the moment, we don't need to be that big. We're going to be choiceful where we go in the on-trade, but our brand was built kind of retail first. This brand Mirabeau, was built, with the grocers, ultimately with Waitrose.
It's so interesting how that's flipping. How building a brand in the on-trade and then leaking into, focusing on a white hot centre of the on-trade that works for your brand, and then leaking into retail afterwards. How it's now can be reversed is, I think that's a really interesting trend that's happening now.
And that's driven by consumers and how they're, consuming media, social media, how they're, it's driven all by the consumer, right? Ultimately, they're the ones that are buying the drink and either visiting the on-trade or having drinks at home or whatever they're doing. It's all consumer behaviour has changed massively since COVID. So
investing in social platforms, like LinkedIn and like Instagram. This is still a popular, proven, tested method.
Yep, absolutely.
And just driving and with an Instagram thing, do you drive to Amazon for the sales, for fulfillment?
I'd like to say we're doing that really successfally, but I'd like to.
Yeah.
But we're trying. I think not just Amazon. I think everyone, e-commerce. They're a big player. Pure play is the lingo. all of the, I think a lot of people think .coms and the whole e-commerce is just a completely different channel. It's not. It's just another sales channel. So, you know, I just look at it as another place you can buy things, and it's not got its own rules or anything. It's exactly the same as other channels, and people get, you know, worried about it, but it's just another channel to put your brand and allow consumers to do what they do.
Interesting. And if Amazon opened a wholesale trade account for bars, would you order from it, Rhys?
That's interesting.
This whole podcast was to ask that question.
Yeah.
Well, I think Mirabeau is a great brand, and I appreciate what Richard was saying. You know, but when it comes to the site, you know, people, you know, social media or whatever may bring somebody to the site or to the brand in a venue, but it's got to be a great product. And you know, you're going to sit down, have a glass of rosé, you know, in the sunshine as you will, and it's a great product. And then really, the real trick about bars is getting people in can be the easy bit. You know, it's making them stay and have another drink, and then they tell their friends and come back. And that's only going to happen if the service is great and the product's great. And you know, Mirabeau is a great product, and I think you know, from an operator's point of view, you've got to be able to back up. Social media is great, but you've got to be careful that I don't want to shout too loudly about what we can do until we can deliver it. And so, you know, with my new project, we're not doing that sort of stuff at the minute because we need to sort out some of the stuff in store. And that, you know, that's helped by having a great product that the staff, again, go back to the staff believe in, and, you know, you not just have the one, you can have, they'll stay for another because it's a great product. Yes, I've seen it in Waitrose and online, but, you know, when they get into store, it's got to be nice glassware, nice temperature, in a nice bucket, you know, and it's got to have the correct delivery, and that's essential too.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that Instagram phenomenon of, you know, when drinks brands really nail it on Instagram. You know, the prime example for me is that Aperol Spritz. They killed it with the big orange glass. Always people, it's always more than one person in the photo. It's never drinking alone.
Yeah.
And you know, it was always tagging a venue or a place, or be outdoors in the sun, and sort of emotive link to kind of being in the Mediterranean or in Italy or the Amalfi. And I think yeah, there's obviously a two-way streak in pushing consumers into bars, but consumers into buy drinks from bars from the same channel. It's a very interesting thing.